here up front. I recognize a lot of faces today, but I also see some new faces. In case you don't know what we do and who we are, Social Media Breakfast is an educational and networking event that happens the third Wednesday of every month here at Dream Bank, focusing on a variety of different marketing and social media related topics. We also stream live on Facebook and LinkedIn if you're unable to make it in person. And usually we have breakfast of some kind. Today, pancakes by Joe, our board member. So make sure to give him a thank you for those delicious pancakes. We are looking for additional folks to join our board. So if you are interested in volunteering or being a part of Social Media Breakfast, talk to one of us board members. Here's what we all look like. Also wanted to give a thank you to Gray, who was a board member with us for about 2 years, has written a lot of blogs for us, was a panelist for one of our presentations, and a straight up presenter on decentralized social media. So thank you, Gray. With work obligations, he's unable to be on our board any longer, so we're sad to be missing him each month at these events. I also wanted to say a thank you to all of our sponsors. We could not do this without their support, and each one of them helps us in a really wonderful way. One of those sponsors being Dream Bank, allowing us to be here each month, and I'd like to give the microphone to Andy to say a few things.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. As Meg mentioned, my name is Andy Frisky. I'm a team member here at Dream Bank, and I've got a small but mighty team this morning, so I'm excited for that too. Wanted to introduce you, though, to a little bit, for those of you who might not be familiar with Dream Bank, who we are, what we do, why we exist. So here at American Family Insurance, we believe that communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dream. And that's why Dream Bank was created. It was started in 2012, and it's meant to help inspire folks to pursue their dream, in large part by removing obstacles and barriers along the way. So how that shakes out, I'd say, is threefold, the largest one being the events that we host. So we host anywhere between 6 to 15 free events a month, all organized through the lens of personal and professional development. Plenty of business-related programming in there, lots of digital marketing and social media-related topics. In addition to the events that we host, we also function as a drop-in co-working space, which if you haven't explored it yet, I highly encourage you to do so. So behind our Save the Date wall there, you'll see a bunch of red tables and booths. Those are always available to community members on a first come, first served basis. So our hours are Tuesday through Thursday, 9 to 5, and you're always able to pop in and have a quiet place to work. In addition to the co-working space, we always have a robust and interactive exhibit on site. It's all the way in the back of the space. They're always rooted in positive psychology, meant to embody some of the beliefs and the values of the organization. The theme with this one, again, is build your dream. A lot of really cool design thinking concepts and principles incorporated into that exhibit. So again, worth checking out if you have the time to do so today or at a later date. And then lastly, when we're not utilizing this space for our own programming, we offer it up to community members to utilize for their small team functions, gatherings, board meetings, things of that nature. So if you were curious about booking or reserving space, you can reach out to myself. My coworker Jenna is in the blue shirt back there. We'd be happy to facilitate any questions that you may have. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it back to Matt.
Thank you. We also want to give a thank you to one of our sponsors, Serendipity Labs. I don't believe we have someone from Serendipity Labs here, but they are an amazing co-working space on the west side of town. We have hosted several events with them. So if you're looking for a meeting space or some private co-working offices, or even to drop in for the day, they have drop-in passes. Mention Social Media Breakfast, and I know that they have some special perks for folks who attend our meetings here. And finally, we have a member of Forward Fest here to say a few words, which is happening in August, but I will let all the good information come from our sponsor.
My name is Laura Strong, and I'm here representing Forward Fest. I've been on the board for a number of years. Forward Fest started in 2010, and it is the state of Wisconsin's largest celebration of entrepreneurship and innovation. All of our events are for entrepreneurs and by entrepreneurs. This year, we'll have a record number, over 60 events in August, and you can go to forwardfest.org to find the actual schedule. The events range from things like AI topics, technology, to operations and building small businesses. This year, we've got some exciting music and cinema events. Again, with over 60 events, 25 different venues across the city during the span of 5 days. You can pretty much find an event for any interest that you might have. So I encourage you to go to forwardfast.org and check out the schedule. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you. And our event next month is an official Forward Fest event, so stay tuned for information on that. Oh, and here it is. It is how to boost your visibility and credibility on a budget, minimum viable SEO. That is our event next August. And we also have a social media happy hour at Garver Feed Mill on August 27th from 5:30 to 7. It's a you buy your own drink, but we will provide the pizza event. And those are always really fun. And there's a lot of folks who can't make it in the morning that you can network with in the evening. So I always really look forward to those. And one more thing to keep your eyes peeled for, our social media marketing awards. Last year was our first year. We are going to be doing those again this year. Our award event is in October, but the nomination window to nominate folks for social media marketing awards will begin August 1st. And then we also will start accepting applications for our annual nonprofit audit that happens in November. And those will start being accepted later in August. So there's a window there, and keep your eyes on your emails. We'll send a lot more information there for you. And now today we have our not social security presentation, but social media safety for your team. James, let's give it up for James.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone, I'm so proud of you for making it out this morning, coming out here early. And thank you to Social Media Breakfast, of course, and Dream Bank. Really appreciate it. So if you're here, I assume you probably have some kind of social media accounts that you might be responsible for or something like that. So we're going to start talking about that. Just give me a moment here to get everything rolling for you. 1 second. Okay. We'll try this. Okay. So before I start talking about that, just a little bit about myself. My name is James Phetteplace. If you have a difficult time pronouncing that, I understand that. So I usually tell people, you know, feta cheese, Phetteplace. That's how you can remember how to pronounce that name. I'm actually here from Wisconsin. I've lived in Madison since about 1990. And I've been in IT for roughly almost 30 years now. So I believe I've seen it all, and then things happen. So today we're going to kind of talk about that and how to prepare for that. So the kind of things that I've seen in roles like director of IT with multi-facility kind of organizations or small nonprofits that I've also worked at is that disasters happen, problems happen. And so we have to be prepared for them. An example is, I remember getting a call, 2 in the morning, and one facility was half destroyed and another facility had trees down, cars crushed behind the facility, and the fiber cable was out. Could I have prepared for that better? Maybe, maybe. But the important thing is that I have learned from these bitter experiences about how to be prepared for disasters. And that's actually the lens that I'm going to be using today to talk about this topic where it comes to social media. So everybody's familiar with this guy, right? Does anybody know why I might be putting Elmo up on the screen right now? Like why that would be relevant? Okay, that's one idea. How about somebody else? It turns out that Elmo got hacked and was delivering some really unsavory messages on the social media channel X. And so right now the Sesame Workshop is trying to regain control of that account. Trying to regain control. So that's why we're here today. Like, this guy does not need this kind of press, right? And neither do we. So again, thank you for coming for this presentation, because this is the not so fun side of owning social media accounts. This is a critical topic. And so again, thank you for having me here to talk about this. So this is our general outline for what I'm going to be discussing today. I have some additional real stories from the wild about losing social media accounts. In this case, I'm going to talk about YouTube. Why does this kind of thing happen? Why don't we talk about some of the real consequences from when you might lose access to a social media account or ownership of it? And then we're going to talk about BCDR. I will break that down. I'll explain what that means. We'll talk about domains. So that is kind of the root of everything. So that might be unexpected when we're talking about social media for me to bring in like a website domain or an email domain, but it is actually critical. Some red flags you might want to look for, early steps that you can take to regain control of account if you maybe lost it, how to build a safer system. I also have a built-in checklist for this. I've also shared this along with my speaker notes with Social Media Breakfast. So we'll try to find a way that maybe we can share this content with you so you don't have to take pictures or take a lot of notes. But of course, you're welcome to take notes. And then with time permitting at the end, we're going to have a little Q&A opportunity. I can't promise that I have all the answers, but I may at least be able to point you in the right direction, depending on what the questions are. So let's jump in. So I started working at a local charitable nonprofit. And as I came into this role, I've also been in this position where I feel like I'm kind of cleaning up after the party. Coming in as an IT person where there's no documentation, there's no onboarding or offboarding official processes. There's a little bit of chaos. And that's the first thing I do is, from a security perspective, try to figure out how do I rein in the chaos, set a real good foundation, and then move on from there. In this case, the first thing that happened is a coworker came to me and said that they had lost access to their YouTube channel. They had over 20,000 subscribers to their YouTube channel, and this organization relied heavily upon their media. They created a lot of video content spanning many years. This is an organization that was around since the 70s. And since the advent of YouTube, they had been creating and uploading content and building their followers. As it turns out, that account was set up by a staff person who was using their personal Gmail account while they grew to those 20K subscribers. That staff person left. They're left out in the cold. That person was unreachable after they left the organization. That YouTube channel was still associated with that personal Gmail account. And now that account was completely inaccessible, just completely unrecoverable. Nothing they could do about it. They actually had a legal staff, and the legal staff were also unable to work with YouTube and try to regain ownership of this account. So what do you think they had to do? What was their recourse? They had to start over. Exactly right. And when you start over something like a YouTube channel, can you just migrate all of those 20,000 users over to your new YouTube account? Nope. Nope. How about all the comments that were added to all of those YouTube channels and all of the careful consideration and moderation and things like that that staff was doing for all of those YouTube videos? All gone. So they also had a website where they were embedding these YouTube videos on the website. And now what are you supposed to do now that you have two YouTube channels? A lot of websites that you don't have the flexibility to add multiple channels to like that. It becomes much more of a manual effort to stay on top of that. So this is kind of a disaster scenario, right? You definitely don't want this to happen. And again, that's why I'm glad you're here, so we can talk about this topic and work through it, because you can prevent this kind of thing from happening. Moving on, why are teams losing access like this? Why does this kind of thing happen? Does anybody here have any ideas? Like, how does it happen that a team can lose access, whether it's a YouTube account, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc.? How does that happen? Yes. Exactly. So if everybody hear that, like maybe not using strong passwords or even sharing passwords, maybe not using two-factor authentication, 2FA, MFA, things like that. But I will tell you, and I'll mention that 2FA also doesn't exactly protect you in all cases either. So shared passwords with no master list of accounts, the platforms tied to personal emails, which is the example that I already gave to you. That is really, of course, a challenge when it comes to Facebook, right? Because with Facebook accounts, you have to have a personal Facebook to be able to create and manage a business, like a Meta business suite or a Facebook page. They are the biggest pain. No onboarding and offboarding processes. And what I mean by that is whether you're an organization with 2 people or 2,000 people, there's going to be turnover over time. That's going to happen. And so when people are brought onto your team, there needs to be a process. When people leave, there also needs to be a recipe. And then also unclear ownership or responsibility over accounts. And I get it. When you're in particularly in nonprofit organizations, small to medium businesses, people end up wearing a lot of hats. It's that, so I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I wouldn't do that. Like my tagline for where I work is, make peace with technology, which has a lot of different ways of interpreting that. But this is one area where it's so easy. It's so easy. You have this intern that comes in for the summer. You have somebody who their role isn't necessarily social media, but they become your accidental social media guru because they happen to be good at it for their personal social media accounts. And then you give them the reins to get things set up, get it rolling. And then the ownership and responsibility is messy. It's not documented. It's not necessarily a disciplined way of managing those social media accounts. And again, that's a very natural thing to happen at a small business, at a nonprofit organization, where we have too much to do and not enough time to do it. That usually is how these kinds of things happen in my experience. So what are the things that can go wrong if you do lose access? And I think, unfortunately, Elmo has learned the hard way, what can happen if you lose access to your account. And again, still struggling to try to regain access. Lost visibility and engagement. So when we created that new YouTube account at that former place where I worked, and we had to create a new YouTube channel, it took us a lot of time and effort to try to regain users, to regain our visibility, to regain all of that interaction that we had with all of those visitors to the former YouTube channel. That was just a ton of work. The other thing that can happen is reputation damage. So again, I think Elmo is probably going to be forgiven for what has been happening with their X account. However, those of us in small businesses who, especially my business, I have my business for about 3 years. If I had reputation damage now because I lost access to my social media accounts, that would really hurt. And I might not be able to restore my reputation, people's trust in what I do and how I do it. That would be an extreme challenge. Confusion across platforms. So again, like you're used to going to a particular YouTube channel or Facebook page or something like that for an organization, but now they've created a new one. But the old one is still up. So when people search for your social media channel, what can happen? They're going to probably end up at the first one where you've lost all of your access. And now they're confused. Like, well, there hasn't been a post on this Facebook since 2022. What's happening here? It's 2025. It's that kind of confusion that's going to happen to visitors, to your and people who are viewing your social media. And then former staff still having access to your social media accounts. That should literally wake you up in the middle of the night if that's happening, right? Because maybe nothing bad has happened yet, but the other shoe could drop at any time. So you don't need that kind of stress. You have more important things to worry about. So these are the kind of things we want to avoid. That is why I come from, in an IT background, we always talk about BCDR, business continuity and disaster recovery. Not exactly a common topic for people who are in the social media realm, right? However, this is the perspective that I encourage you to start using this lens when it comes to your social media accounts. But this also is a practical skill and knowledge set that applies well beyond social media. The mistake that I think a lot of organizations make, unfortunately, is that BCDR, that's IT. If you're a large enough organization to have an IT footprint, they're like, oh, we need a business continuity disaster recovery plan. Here, IT, do it. It's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. So I encourage you to look into this topic. There are really, really good resources out there for your organization so that if there is a disaster, you can recover from it quickly and you have business continuity in the sense that you can continue your operations in the middle of a crisis. And another way to think about that is your sustainability as a business. So an example that I'm familiar with is September 11th. There are businesses that were in that facility that had no BCDR plan. None of those businesses still exist. None of them. The organizations that did have BCDR, about 40 to 50% of those businesses are still in operation after 9/11. That is the kind of difference a business continuity disaster plan can make. So it is just about keeping essential business functions running during a disruption for business continuity, and the disaster is about restoring those systems after a disruption. So what kind of disasters can happen regarding social media? Those are kind of things that we can talk about. What happens if that one person with access is gone? What if your plan or sorry, that's a typo. What if your plan or your platform just locks you out and you can't get back in? This is why we apply this thinking to social media platforms, because it is a critical asset for your organization. Absolutely critical these days. So our goal with talking about business continuity, disaster recovery in the context of social media is that our goal is resilience, not just access. So resilience when it comes to bad things happening. So how we apply this to social media accounts, these are some recommendations. I'm going to go through lots of recommendations today. You're not going to be able to do all these things when you leave here right away. You're not going to be able to do that, and that's fine. And it's also not about being perfect either. It's so much better to take small, critical steps toward protecting your accounts than trying to be perfect and doing everything right out of the gate. It's kind of an auditing process that over time, once you've done these audits, you can successfully take down these different concerns one at a time. So one, having a contact list for your organization is critical, and keeping it up to date. Having backups. So most social media platforms will allow you to download the content that you've uploaded. So if there are critical assets that only exist on your social media platforms, might be a good idea to go onto those platforms and make sure you have some kind of backup for that content. Have a system recovery plan. So that means, well, we lost access. What do we do? Instead of the nervous pacing of back and forth, people going from office to office or desk to desk, trying to figure out how they're going to get back. I'm seeing some nods, so I think what I'm describing might be a familiar scenario that this kind of thing does happen. It's better to have a plan so that you're like, okay, this happened. Let's open up our plan and just start going through it step by step. That is going to save you a lot of time and possibly save you from losing that social media account completely. So having an access plan in terms of who has access, how do they access it? Do you have strong passwords in place? Do you have two-factor authentication? If you have two-factor authentication, what kind of two-factor authentication is it? Is it a 2FA code that gets sent to somebody's personal mobile phone? If that's the case and they walk out the door, what happens then? Is 2FA going to help you in that scenario? Definitely not. It's actually going to work against you. It's going to work against you. It's going to make it that much harder to regain access to those accounts. So password and account access should be documented. You follow your steps. Have a communication plan. So business continuity and disaster recovery plans. By the way, you can get ready.gov, I think, used to have really good resources where you can download their templates and things like that. I'm not really sure if that's true today. Unfortunately, there have been changes in the administration, so not sure if ready.gov is there for you. But they used to have business continuity disaster recovery templates that you could use. They have a really good communication plan template. And a communication plan is essential for when things like this happen. So let's say you lost access to an account like Elmo, and now the Sesame Street IT team is trying to regain access. What's the communication plan? How did they reach out to the public to let them know that that wasn't really Elmo posting that content, and that they're doing everything they can to recover access? That has to happen rapidly. You have to know ahead of time what kind of media organizations you're going to be reaching out to. You have to know who's in charge of this communication plan. You have to see how well that plan is working. And it's a good idea to test that plan when there isn't a crisis to see if it actually works. Like, how quickly can you access your communication plan? Are the people that you depend upon in this plan, are they still on staff? Are they still available? Are you still using those same channels of communication? Absolutely essential to have a solid communication plan. And again, not just for social media, just generally, if anything that could potentially damage your reputation as a business, something that could damage your brand. Having that communication plan is going to help. And then having an inventory. So sometimes you have account access that's tied to devices. As I mentioned, like sometimes maybe there's a social media account and you manage mobile devices in your site. Like there are mobile devices that are owned, or desktops or laptops or et cetera. Like, do you have an inventory of that equipment? Like, is that piece of equipment the required part of a 2FA authentication process for those social media accounts? Gets pretty sticky right away, doesn't it? If you start thinking about all the possibilities of what could happen with your accounts, and that all of this could possibly tie back to it. So again, I mentioned testing as well is a critical piece of that. So now what I want to talk about are domains. You don't have to have a domain registered to have a social media account and be a business, right? You don't have to do that, except you really do. And here's why. First of all, anybody could register and buy those domains, right? So I usually advise website clients not only to get that domain that matches your business name, like solid and it's a .com, get the .net, get the .org, try to get multiple domains that match the name of your organization and protect that. Protect that, because if somebody else buys it and then they publish a poker website using your domain name, that could hurt your reputation maybe a little. See, yep. Yes, yes. So that no matter how much social media account access you have, if you don't have domain access, you're still going to have problems. Here's another reason. How many folks out there are just using free personal Gmail accounts for their business? I'm just curious. Does anybody do that? Yep. Yep. We have a few people. Right? It's okay. Again, I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you, but I am informing you probably not the best practice. And here's why. If you want to try to regain your access to your social media accounts, that's going to be really hard to do with a free Gmail account. It's going to be very difficult. You will at least have a step up on that process if you own a branded domain and a branded email account to argue with Meta, to argue with LinkedIn, to claim that actually you should be the owner of that social media account. So if you lose your domain, that's another problem if you already have one. So I always encourage people to be careful about that, because if you lose a domain, like let's say you let the registration lapse on it, you lose your email, you lose your website, you lose those recovery options where it comes to those social media platforms. So always enable auto renew for domain registrations. Just putting that out there. Auto renew that thing and make sure that it's associated with a payment type that is active and and worked and hasn't expired. So it's important, though, once you have this domain, to also have a trusted off-domain email as a backup recovery. It's a kind of a tautological issue, right? You can't register a domain with a domain-based email, right? You have to start somewhere. So you will have to use an off-domain account, like maybe a free Gmail account, to be an off-domain email as a backup recovery. But wow, you better have that account like well protected, monitored, pay a lot of attention to it, and make sure that it's active and it's something you have access to. So these are the kind of things that are kind of a foundational concern for when the possibility happens that you lose access to a social media account. Having a branded domain that is registered, up to date, and all of that, and your email accounts are using that branded domain is going to really give you a boost if you need to regain access to a social media account. And it's also what you should be using to set up those social media accounts in the first place. You don't want that scenario where you lost your 20,000 YouTube subscribers because the only account associated with it was a free off-domain Gmail account. That's really the point of all of this, is that let's say well, I shouldn't even say let's say, hypothetically, it just happens, and I've experienced it, where somebody walks out, but your social media account is associated with their kind of direct email account, like John Smith at Erawatech.com. If I have administrator access to the email account, no problem, because I can go in and reset the password on the account. I could have full access to that email account, and regaining access to social media, few steps. It is not difficult. But again, two-factor, you got to worry about that two-factor authentication and where that's going. All right, this is a lot of information, so I'm just taking a big breath, making sure we're all still here with this. Sometimes it's a little scary to talk about these scenarios, so it's all right. It's going to be okay. We'll just keep moving on. Here are some of the warning signs in your organization, your small, if you're a small business owner. This will work either way, whether you're a large organization or you're an organization of one. Here are some warning signs. There's no list. Who has access to what? There's those logins tied to personal accounts. There's only one person with administrative rights on whether it's a social media account or your email account. Like if you have a productivity suite like Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, only one administrator, not great. Again, MFA tied to someone's phone. I've mentioned that a few times. There are other ways to do two-factor authentication. And for your social media accounts, I encourage you to consider other means, other types of 2FA that are not tied to personal phones. If you have no offboarding process, even if it's, let's say somebody temporarily worked for you, you just had an intern or something like that, there still needs to be an offboarding process to make sure that not only the physical assets are handled, like if you gave them a laptop or something like that, but also like the accounts they have access to. So that offboarding process needs to be kind of a checklist, like, oh, okay, they had access to YouTube. We're going to remove access to the YouTube account. Now we're going to work through the Meta Business Suite and make sure that they have access, change there, et cetera. There should be a nice list that you can work off of. So the offboarding process is smooth, everybody's expectations are set, and you don't accidentally lose access to things that are your assets, whether it's even email, for example. Email under a branded domain, that's the property of the organization. The emails in that account are the property of the organization. So even if they have personal emails in there, you still own access to that account. So I always encourage, as part of how you set up these systems, is that you encourage people, hey, if you have personal stuff, use your personal email for that. Work is for work, and you do not have a reasonable expectation of privacy with email. So these are these are kind of fundamentals concerns. But if you have no offboarding process and somebody leaves, and now a month later you're realizing, oh no, that was the person who had access to our Meta Business Suite, and now we don't have access. Are we going to be able to find them? You don't want to be in that situation. I literally had that happen yesterday with a client. So it does happen. So here are the things that you can do right now. Not right now, but maybe today or tomorrow. List every platform your org uses, all of them. Just get them out there. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the list is for your organization. Have at least a bullet list. Check who has access and what level. This is also a way to find out if you have access or not too. Change logins from personal to organization-owned logins. So that's why I talk a lot about having a branded domain and using branded emails. Turn on two-factor authentication with organization-managed backups. I could probably spend a whole session just talking about that. I just recommend looking into that. Here are some long-term protection practices using those role-based emails, using a password manager. LastPass is just an example. If you have more than one person in your business, I recommend getting team accounts, professional paid accounts for a password manager, as opposed to just using kind of the free versions of these password managers. They are very effective if they're used correctly, and you keep them up to date, and you have shared access, so you can securely share passwords with others. You want to document logins and share it with the leadership of the organization. Again, this really depends upon your business size. Want to have that offboarding checklist for staff that are leaving. Assign somebody who's your social media steward. Now, again, if we're wearing a lot of hats, this is a role. It doesn't necessarily have to be one person and one job. It's a role that can be shared. And in a lot, for those of us with only a few employees, you are going to have to share the responsibilities of this role. So just think of it that way. So again, I can't thank you enough for being here for something that's really about kind of taking your medicine. This is not a fun topic. It's not great, not exciting, not thrilling. Elmo might feel differently about that though today. So it is kind of a take your medicine conversation. So make sure to audit your accounts. We want to migrate your access to those organization-owned emails. We want to use tools to manage those logins, like I mentioned, and set policies for your continuity. Those are all kind of long-term concerns, strategic concerns where it comes to those platforms. Well, what if it's too late? Let's go quickly through some of this. And again, this is going to be available to you in a PDF format. if it's too late, this is the kind of checklist that I walk through with clients. Try logging in from any known device. Check for other people who might still have access. Go to the platform's account recovery or help center. Remember, for these platforms, you being able to talk to a human being, it's probably not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So you'll have to get used. You have to know where those resources are. Give your business documentation if needed to prove your ownership. I know for a Facebook business account, depending on how they do their ads and things like that, I had to give them a copy of my driver's license, and they had to send me a password through snail mail for me to set up the right level of ownership. So be prepared with that documentation. Secure all those related accounts, emails, phone numbers, password manager, etc. And then just review and update those procedures. Real easy, right? No problem. You have a lot of time on your hands. No, it's, again, I just want to, for my refrain on this, just do the things that you can do now and do your best to just kind of chip away at these concerns over time, because everybody's busy. I get it. But there are really simple things you can do right away to protect access to those social media accounts. So this is a checklist. Again, this is something we'll make available to you so that you can kind of at least quickly go through things that are going to help keep those social media accounts safe. I only wish I had more time that I could talk on this topic. There are just so many fun disaster stories I could tell you, but I wanted to make sure that we have some time for Q&A today. So we're just going to wrap this part of it up and open it up to your questions. All right, thank you. Yes.
For how to back up content that's, for example, stored in Google Drive?
Good question. There are a lot of options with that. I have set up what's called a hybrid cloud approach at some organizations. So, and Google Workspace and Google Drive works very well with that. So an example would be you have a NAS or some kind of storage, local storage in your organization. You can set it up so it does two-way syncing. So you add new content in the drive, it automatically downloads it local. If you do things local, it automatically syncs up to Drive. That, to me, is the best approach in that scenario. Yes?
So in the case that you gave at the beginning, they completely lost their YouTube account. What would be the issues behind being able to recover it? Is it more of a legal, financial thing on YouTube's end, or what are some of the common restrictions that are going to be in the way for that?
Well, first, when you set up these kind of accounts, most people are going to be clicking through a lot of terms and conditions without reading them. And so those terms and conditions are really clear about how to make sure that you have ownership over this account and maintain it. So that's the first place I recommend people actually start. It's going back and reviewing those terms and conditions. It's not fun. Maybe you could use a chatbot to like kind of copy it and paste it into a chatbot and have it like summarize it for you or something like that. But first of all, the problem is that they warn you ahead of time, and then we don't read it because we're too busy. So if you have a YouTube channel and there was only one account associated with it and it was a personal Gmail account and that person is gone, you have to make the case to YouTube. And again, you're not going to be making the case to a human being. There's not a human being that you will be able to reach. And so you may eventually establish the legal ownership over that YouTube account, but how much time do you want to put into that? How much money do you want to spend on lawyers to get it back for you? There's a lot of problems there. So really it comes down to, if you have that account set up and it's only accessible by that Gmail account you no longer have access to, like, you don't have an argument with YouTube, because they're going to say, hey, our terms and conditions are really clear. Yeah, there's another question.
do you have any advice on, like, would you recommend an organization get like an organization-owned cell phone as a workaround for people using their personal phones? So like, I do social media, and so like I have access to multiple Instagram accounts
Right.
all on my phone. So is that a possible workaround for there to be like an organization device?
Yes, it is possible. It really depends upon what the resources of that organization. So I have been the IT director at Willie Street Co-op for about a decade. And we went from about 70, 80 employees while I was there to over 400 by the time I left. And at that time, I was managing over 50 like mobile devices that we owned. And we actually encourage people to just go ahead and use it because we own it. But if you don't want to have the 2-phone game like some people do, we were like, it's okay. You're using it primarily for business use. So if you have it's some incidental personal use, go ahead. Because then that's another asset that you're going to get back during the offboarding process. Having said all of that, I still do not encourage use of mobile phones for 2-factor authentication for this. There are other ways to do it, like that it emails the code to you. For social media accounts, and you have branded domain email addresses, that will make your IT folks happier, like to do it that way. But again, none of these security options are perfect. Like none of them are going to be perfect. So even if you do everything right, there's still possibility that you could lose access to things that you really need. So that's where the whole planning part of this conversation comes in, right? It's more important to have that plan in place than it is to be perfect about what devices you're using for 2-factor authentication, if that makes sense. Yes.
So you mentioned. Is it better to have a phone or like an authenticator app then for 2-factor authentication? And then what is the risk with the phone versus an authenticator?
Well, if it's a personal phone, the risk is that that person has now left the organization. And so 2-factor keeps going to this person that's no longer available to you. So that's the real danger, is like now, and let's say, it's the worst case scenario. They're the only one who have administrative access to your social media account. That's where using a phone, you can have some policies like device management platforms. They're also built into Google Workspace, Microsoft 365, things like that, where you can still connect in a way to these personal devices. But again, I just think the simplest solution is probably the best. And I think using mobile devices for 2-factor authentication for business-owned social media accounts, not the best option to have. So it'd be better to have it just send that code to the email address.
Did you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
I mean, this is kind of niche, but I use my personal laptop at work because the organization is tiny, and both my personal and my work Gmail accounts will sign me in automatically. I have tried to disconnect this so that I actually have to sign in, and I have not figured out how to do it. Yeah, do you have any suggestions on that?
So automatically signs you into those
My
Google
Gmail.
accounts?
Yeah. Both
And-
the work one, which is connected to a domain, but also my personal one.
Okay. And so you want to set it so that it doesn't automatically log you in. It really depends on what the automatic login method is. So for example, some people use a Chrome browser, and Chrome is set up to store passwords, and people rely on that for their password management. By the way, I don't do that. It is not secure way to do that. So again, it's going to really depend on the details of what you mean by automatically authenticating. So one step you can do is go into your Google profile, and there's there's a little icon in the upper right hand corner of your browser if you're logged into your browser with those accounts. It's not the top one, like your profile. It's the one down here, which is the account profile. It's confusing. But if you go into that account profile, there's a whole list of things that you can do. And one of those, it talks about security and privacy and your passwords and things like that. So that is a place to start anyway, to see why it would be that these accounts automatically log in without requesting a password. It could be tied to that device, but I don't think that's likely. I think it's going to be something you can at least go in the right direction if you start looking into that account profile. Yeah, it's but the answer is there. It's going to be difficult to figure out why it's always logged in and never logs you out. Yeah. Now, if it's an organizational account, they can set that at the administrator level. So I always set that when I worked at other people's organizations where I was employee or whatever, so that would automatically expire passwords so that people were forced to log in like every 30 days.
So you talked about business, LinkedIn, Facebook. You have to have your own personal account to log into those or have access to those. What's some personal security precautions that you recommend?
Well, the good news is that in my speaker notes, because I knew it would come up with Facebook because of how that works, I have a full list of things that you can follow specifically for Facebook. So that will be in the PDF because it's a long, like you're asking a question that the answer is long, unfortunately. But Facebook is so frustrating. I don't have great answers when it comes to that because of how they rely upon you having a personal Facebook page to create these business accounts. That doesn't make sense to me, how that works. Even me, and I'm in IT. So I don't have any great answers for that, but I did come up with a list of things that can help you with, specifically with Facebook and the Meta Business Suite.
Any other questions? Oh, right in my blind spot.
Thanks. What are your thoughts on Safari for generating and storing your passwords?
Don't do it.
No?
No, you should definitely have a password manager platform or account, as we mentioned. So like 1Password, LastPass, there are a bunch of really good options. Using your browsers to store your password just is not as safe as using one of those accounts. Having said that, I also admit that LastPass was hacked maybe about a year ago or something like that. So even these places have their problems, right? But it's still going to be safer to use that than using Safari browser, Chrome browser, or any browser to store your passwords for you. Or, well, there's of course the scenario where people have your, a Microsoft Word document with all your accounts and passwords and everything written on there, or literally printed out. It's better to use the password manager. You have one strong password to remember, and then you can have it auto-generate random, ridiculous long passwords, and you don't have to remember them. It remembers them for you. I don't know about you, but I can't remember more than a handful of passwords. And that's a problem because now you're going to start reusing them when that happens. And sometimes people use, the same kind of password theme, but just little changes to it depending on the platform. And then you'll watch them try to regain access like, oh, it's not that password. Maybe it's this one. It takes 4 or 5 times to get logged in. You can avoid all of that using a really, really strong password manager. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, let's give it up one more
Right.
time for
Thanks,
James.
everybody. Thank you. Take your medicine.
Well, that's all. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in August for our next Forward Fest event. Yeah. I think we'll be sending it out in our recap blog via email. So if you're not on our email list, sign up for that. It's a good place to get information.
And you'll see all my speaker notes where I completely deviated from all of it.